Hello and welcome back to Feed Your Faith and our segments entitled The Normal Christian Life. My name is Ian White, and in these segments we're looking at what St Paul describes as the fruit of the Holy Spirit, the natural consequences of having God's Holy Spirit indwelling in us as believers. So let's see how he works this out. When we read about the works of the flesh as he describes them, in comparison with the fruit of the Spirit, we're intended to spot some contrasts. Here's how Paul puts it. For the sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the sinful nature. They are in conflict with each other, so that you do not do what you want. The Holy Spirit creates within us a desire to live in fellowship with God, a hunger for holiness and joy. But that is in conflict with the darker side of our nature. And Paul highlights this conflict by making several contrasts. The first one is between rebellion and cooperation. The works of the flesh are essentially acts of rebellion against God. They are assertions of my independence, doing my own thing, going my own way. Therefore, to experience the fruit of the Spirit, we must cooperate with God and not seek independence from him. If we want to know love and joy and peace and so on, we can't do it without letting God work these things in us. Those works of the flesh represent rebellion against God, and the fruit of the Spirit represent cooperation with him. The second contrast is between works and fruit. Interestingly, the Authorised or King James Version picks up this nuance when it describes the works of the flesh using that phrase works. This is something that needs a bit of effort. They're things that we do, that we invest energy in. If works conjures up the idea of a factory, then fruit conjures up the idea of an orchard. And we're intended to notice this. A third contrast is between the dead and the living. Human operation is always in the arena of death. Take this building, for example. It's a nice building. It's my house. I like it. And somebody put a great deal of effort into building it. And my wife and I try to keep it this way, but it's an inanimate object. It has no life in it. And one day it will collapse or be demolished. And the works of the flesh are of that order. They will pass away. They come from the realm of death, of being inanimate. But fruit is alive. It comes from a living thing, a tree or a plant. And it retains that life in its very being. In fact, it has the capacity for reproduction. And the fourth contrast is the works of the flesh bring death, but the Spirit himself brings life. In order that we don't drift into an error that the early Christians sometimes suffered from, we need to notice something here. In the early church, there were people who believed that everything of the physical flesh was bad and everything of the Spirit was good. But notice here that the fruits of the Spirit are not worked out in spiritual or ethereal terms, just in our heads and our hearts. They are shown in the actions of our bodies. Your body, if you're a Christian believer, is the vehicle of the Holy Spirit. You can't be filled with the Holy Spirit without your body noticing. And this is something that we'll come on to later. We can't experience love without feeling that we're loving or being loved by someone. We can't experience joy without the pleasure sensors of our brains firing up a bit. We can't know patience without suppressing that urge to thump in one. So there are the fruit of the Spirit, which represents the normal operating conditions that God has designed us to live within. Life is lived best when we let them develop and when we let God develop his fruit within us. Well, from here, you can like, you can subscribe, and you can share what you've just seen with some of your friends. So please do click around on the screen here, and you'll find some other things that I hope will help to bolster your ministry. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're right here, and I appreciate that enormously. God bless you.